Hey gang, Bruce White here from Brand Sprint Academy. A few of you have been reaching out to me recently asking for more information on the messaging sprint, or more in general, our upcoming Ultimate Messaging Kit, which is due for release in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I thought I'd just shoot a quick video and just show you how it looks, what the canvas looks like, what the deliverables look like, how the sprint works, and just give you a little bit more information so you can decide if you think this fits your model, and if you think you might want to add this sprint to your sprint arsenal. So this sprint has actually just gone through a complete overhaul. Now it wasn't meant to have a complete overhaul, but I added an exercise to this sprint in January that I've been working on for about 3 years now, and we finally got it to the point where we know that no matter who we run this with, all the questions are answered, and we're guaranteed to get the results that the client needs. And so I won't add an exercise like this to our training until I've really put it through its paces. So again, this exercise has been going for about 3 years in development, and we added that to the sprint in January. Normally, when you add an exercise to a sprint like this, all you really do is you're shuffling timing and you're moving stuff around. But in this case, the exercise that we added, which I'll show you in just a minute on the canvas, what it did was it fundamentally changed the makeup of many of the other elements of brand messaging that we developed during this messaging sprint, and it made them all infinitely stronger. So again, I'll show you those details in just a minute, but I just wanted to begin with sort of placing a definition on what the brand messaging is supposed to do. So fundamentally, brand messaging is about creating urgency in our prospect's mind to change, right? But in order to do that, we really need to first define who the prospect's enemy is, and we approach this a little differently to what you've probably seen in the past. So normally, messaging starts with a problem, right? It's that old broken leg metaphor where you're sort of thinking that you need to treat your prospect's pain like you're a doctor who's treating a broken leg, and that usually sounds something along the lines of, okay, you're suffering this problem. Here's how we solve it. Here's why we're better than others. And realistically, there's nothing wrong with that approach. A lot of people use that approach, and it works. That's why it's still being used. But you're really only going to be gathering the low-hanging fruit using that approach. When you want to grow past the easy wins, you're going to need to find something more effective. Because when you open up your messaging by telling people they have a problem, there's a really decent chance that their immediate reaction is going to be defensive, right? Because they either don't believe they have the problem, they're in denial about the problem, or worst, and this is actually the most common, they think that if they admit to having the problem, you're going to try and sell them something. So unless you're selling cancer treatment or something really, really vital like that, the majority of your prospects either don't have or don't know that they have a problem, right? They may be doing okay and they just want to get better. Realistically, most people simply aren't in that much pain in business. Sure, business could be better, but is it worth risking making a change? So that's not a big hole in the head problem. That's really just business. And so the reality is the threat that we need to define for our clients and that we need to show them that they need to defeat is actually the status quo, not making a change. That's what we need to create the urgency around. So if we really want to make our prospects or our clients' markets change and do something different, what we want to do is tell them a story that encourages them to make a change and move away from the status quo. And so, of course, the foundation of the messaging assets that we develop in our messaging sprint are all around that. They're around defining the status quo as the enemy, and why just doing nothing or just doing what you're already doing is going to cause you pain in the future. So it's still sort of related to pain, but without saying, hey dude, you've got this problem, I can fix it, and then putting them on the defensive. So that's obviously, everything is based around what I said earlier, which is fundamentally, our messaging is about creating urgency in our prospect's mind to change. So let me show you a little bit about how this sprint looks. So obviously you've got your 2 slide decks. This is a 2-session sprint. For those of you who've already done the Brand Sprint Blueprint, you know that the Brand Sprint Blueprint is a 6-session sprint. Every different session is going to have its own slide deck. Obviously, we don't want to have multiple, any longer slide decks than we need to. We want you focused on just what you're focused on that day. So that's the slide decks. This is a look at the canvas. Now, this one's completed because I literally just finished doing this with a client. What day is it? 3 days ago, we finished doing this sprint. And so I thought I'd show you one that's a little bit more complete so I can talk you through what we did to get there. So this sprint is designed to be run after a brand sprint. So that's where a lot of the info comes from. So up here, you can see we've got the brand elements here that we defined with the client during the brand sprint. That's where this foundational material comes from. The first thing that we're going to do in here, I'm going to click on Decision Center over here. The first thing that we do in this sprint is we identify all of the vital foundation material that's going to create our messaging assets in a more of a sort of a, I guess, an assembly line or a plug and play. It's a very intuitive process once we have this information defined. So session 1 is all about, you can see this center section here. It's all about completing this part here using the information that we already have from their brand sprint and from the previous work we've done with them. So for those of you who've done the brand sprint, you'll know that we use the review mining and the transformation grid boards in Trello. And so we begin with that information as we start to outline and uncover the problems, the trends, what we're including in our solutions, the benefits, and then the most important part of this, which is the category narrative. So this is all developed in session 1. Again, we begin with that information we've already got, and then there's a series of brainstorming exercises, and of course, I'll show you how to do all that in the sprint. That's all in your slide deck, just like normal. And there are also some research techniques that I'm going to show you that you can go into this sprint armed with all sorts of valuable insights for your clients that you've already developed before you even get in here, just based on some simple research. So the level of insight you can bring to a client doing this sprint is going to make you look like an absolute genius. And realistically, it's just a matter of you putting in a little bit of work before the sprint, doing that research, finding out the answers to some of these questions, and then when the client asks them, you've got that already ready to go. So on that note, this sprint is actually very different in one aspect to how the brand sprint is run. So in the brand sprint, we don't offer any opinions because we can't put our fingers on the scale for creating a client's brand. But in this one, the brand exists. We've already done that. We've done all that work. So in this one, if you're comfortable doing so, you can sort of act like a team member during this sprint, and you can provide ideas, you can provide opinions, you can provide copy blocks, you can think of all sorts of things, and just anything we can do at this level to make our clients' messaging stronger. We should absolutely be doing that if we're legitimately living our purpose of giving maximum value, right? So we begin with this decision center in the middle, and then the rest of the sprint is actually, what we do in session 2 is actually really intuitive. It's just really just sort of assembling the copy as you go. And of course, as I said, all of the exercises are detailed. All of the questions you need to ask to get what you need is all detailed in those slides. So you don't have to worry about that. It is essentially brainstorming, but it's facilitated brainstorming. And so I show you exactly how to do that. The only things we don't do, if I go up here and I show you the rest of this canvas. So up here we've got the pitch deck. That's the new exercise that I just added. This has made a massive change to the rest of the messaging. This is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, but again, I won't add an exercise to this type of training until I've made sure it's absolutely bulletproof. And so this was completed in January, and we've been testing that since. As we work through these additional exercises, these additional pieces of brand messaging that the client is going to use, they each have their purpose, they each have their reason. The onliness statement, the elevator pitch, the value proposition, the origin story, these are all completed during the sprint live with the client. The only thing we don't complete live with the client is the pitch deck and the sales letter. Now, we do complete most of them. We complete about 90% of each of these assets live with the client. But these are also your opportunities for additional work after the sprint is finished, right? So you can either deliver the 90% complete draft for the client to complete on their own using their own copywriters or their own designers, or you can offer to handle them for them at an additional fee. Right now, sales letters are not inexpensive. The cheapest that you should ever consider writing a sales letter for a client, it's going to be around $5,000. I wouldn't do it for that cheap, but that's about as cheap as you want to go, and they can go up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars and include portions of royalties based on the sales they create. Like, a sales letter is the most valuable asset that you can possibly create for your client in brand messaging. We're going to complete 90% of this during the sprint. Based on that, you are probably not going to charge full weight for this sales letter once you've gotten 90% of the draft. You're not going to charge the full amount to complete it. But that means you have to price this messaging sprint in such a way that you take into account that you're 90% completing a sales letter during it. So the sales letter and the pitch deck will be 90% complete by the time you finish this sprint with the client. The pitch deck is obviously going to require some design, and then the sales letter is going to require some wordsmithing. I do put templates and examples in the draft that you deliver so that the client can finish it on their own. If you're going to finish it for them, you would obviously just take out the descriptions of each section, and you would just leave in the draft copy that you've developed, and then you can use that. It's just on a Google Doc. You can use that just to proof with them as you're writing the remainder of it. So if you've got a designer, or if you've got copywriters, or if you've got a team on staff, or even subcontractors, designers and copywriters as subcontractors, you can have them do this, and you can charge the client accordingly. Or you can simply hand over the 90% complete assets along with the instructions, which I'm putting in all of these templates. So you can give them the draft template along with instructions on how they can finish it themselves. Either way, we want to make sure that the client walks away with the maximum value from this sprint. So that's what the canvas looks like. One thing I will point out, unlike the brand sprint where every session has its own canvas, because we begin this in the decision center in the middle, and then this decision, or the decisions we make here, are used as that sort of assembly line copy version. Excuse me. It's one canvas because the elements in the middle are used for the elements around the outside, and the elements around the outside are the session 2. That's the assembly line portion of it. So obviously we've got things in there like the sales letter draft template, which you will get included. Again, you get you get both your slide decks, you get the sprint canvas, and of course this one being the ultimate messaging kit. Just like our ultimate niche kit, this also comes with detailed instructions on how you can create this messaging for your own brand before you run the sprint to create this messaging for clients moving forward. So that's it. That's just a bit of an overview on the messaging sprint. I just wanted to make a quick video for those of you who've been asking about this. Of course, if you've got any questions, get in touch with me. I'd love to have a chat. I'd love to help you make some decisions, whether you decide this fits your model or not. I'd love to be able to help you make those decisions. And in the interim, keep doing what you're doing. Keep studying the brand sprint blueprint, and obviously facilitating as many sprints as you can, whether those be with colleagues, friends, or clients. The more you do this stuff, the easier it gets. And until you get to that point where you're 100% comfortable, these slide decks obviously have all of the sprint, the scripts, they have all of the timers, they have all of the explanations you'll need. You can literally read your sprint from these scripts. Until you get fully comfortable to the point where you can just run through it and ad-lib it. So that's it for the messaging sprint explanation. Again, reach out and ask me if you have any questions whatsoever, and I will see you the next time.